Okay, I just did Unit 3. Filmed it, whole 9 yards, and guess what? It didn't film. Not happy. So, take 2. Politics. Here we go for the second time, but you never saw the first time because the video didn't work. So, politics. Two-party system. Democrats, Republicans. We have a political spectrum. To the far left, my left, liberals. To the far right, my right, conservatives. Moderates in the middle. To try to put Democrats on the left all together in one group, really not fair. They're moderate and conservative Democrats. Conservative Democrats we find in the South, they're Dixiecrats. Republicans, yeah, a lot of them are conservative. Some of them off the chart conservative, but we do have some in the middle as well. So in essence, when we're looking at political parties, what we're trying to say is you cannot put all members of a political party into one area of the spectrum. To be deemed liberal is someone who you would say is a little bit more open-minded, loose interpretation of the Constitution. To be more conservative, you're more traditional, strict interpretation of the Constitution. We can't really put all members of the political parties into one particular area. To be moderate, you can simply say you're in the middle. History of political parties, well, we have the very first very first party is called the Democratic Republican Party. You could say the Federalist Party was the first party, but a little bit of argument of whether or not that's true. So the Democratic Republican Party lasted for only a short period of time because with the election of Andrew Jackson in the 1820s, we see that the party splits. Those who agree with Jackson and his presidency become Democrats. Those who disagree become National Republicans, also referred to as the Whigs. 1850s, we see a few Democrats leave the Democratic Party and go with the Whigs to form the Republican Party because they were anti-slavery. They were abolitionists. So we're still left with a two-party system. There are third parties, of course. We have, the Communist Party, Socialist Worker Party, Green Party, Libertarian Party. There's a lot of third parties. But they're minor parties because, well, they've never won the presidency. They may become a governor, maybe win a congressional seat, a state legislator seat, but they've never won the presidency, and that's why they'll always remain a minor party. Biggest reason, they can't raise the money to win the presidency. They have to have their name on every ballot of the 50 state ballots and in D.C. in order to effectively attempt to win. That takes a petitioning process. That just does not happen for third parties because they just don't have the political influence. So, we've got the two-party system. We have third parties. We have political machines. These are corrupt organizations. The most recognizable one was Tammany Hall in New York City. A lot of scandal, blackmailing, intimidation, buying and selling candidates and buying and selling votes. Illegal, shouldn't happen, did happen. So, we then look at, well, how do we nominate a candidate? Well, we have primary elections. We only pay attention to primaries when we're electing a president, but there's also primaries for the position of a governor or a position of a member of Congress. In a primary, we have two types. Open, which means if you are a Republican and you want to vote in the Democratic primary, go for it. If you are in a state that is a closed primary, such as North Carolina, you have to only vote, or you're only allowed to vote in the primary of the party that you belong to. So if you're an unaffiliated voter, such as myself, you cannot participate in the primaries in North Carolina. And it all comes down to majority rule. Whoever wins the majority within that primary is more than likely going to win the election on election day. So on election day, what we notice is that with elections, we have in November of every year, first Tuesday after first Monday, that's called the general election. And we really tend to only, once again, pay attention to the general election in a presidential election year, which will be, of course, next year, 2016. So what happens in a presidential primary? Well, you go and participate in your state's primary. There are a whole bunch of Republicans, a whole bunch of Democrats on the list. And in a closed state, Closed primary state, if you're a Republican, you're going to vote for the strongest candidate. If you're a Democrat, vote for the strongest candidate. And hopefully what's left is going to be one Democrat and one Republican running for president. And you then have what is called the National Convention. This is something that happens in the summer. Primaries happen in January through roughly March, early April. Early summer, we have the convention. This is officially when they select or introduce the party's candidate for the presidency. Then we go to the campaign. And this is where we see propaganda techniques being used by candidates and also interest groups. And interest groups are those groups that raise a lot of money to help political parties win certain offices. In this case, we're talking about the president. And they raise a whole lot of money because they form what are called PACs, political action committees. These political action committees do something, or they raise something called soft money, which is unlimited funding of campaigns. Congress has tried to limit soft money. There has been laws passed to limit soft money, but the Supreme Court consistently has said that is unconstitutional, that you are violating a person's freedom of speech, i.e. expression, by donating money to political action committees. Famous case of Citizens United versus the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission. The Supreme Court said unconstitutional. You cannot limit soft money. You cannot restrict PACs. Hard money is directed to the candidate. They can limit you on that. The frequency of how many times you can donate in an election year and how much you can donate to a specific candidate. So during the campaign, after the convention, we see the propaganda. We see the campaign commercials. We see the things in the mail. We see the signs on the roadway. We get emails. We get campaign commercials on YouTube, on the internet just in general. And they're trying to persuade you to vote for a certain candidate using various techniques. So interest groups use this. Campaigns use this. So what are the techniques? You have things such as simple as endorsements, getting someone famous to endorse the candidate. You have just plain folks trying to say that that person's just like you, but in essence they're not. You have name calling, mudslinging, making the other candidate look bad. You have symbolism, patriotic symbols, red, white, and blue, stars and stripes, on and on and on. Anything America, anything American. Okay. You then have the glittering generalities, where you use a very broad, powerful slogan that has a very hollow meaning. In the case of, President Obama during his first run at president, the first term, 2008, yes, we can. Very bold, positive statement, but what does it really mean? It's like having a poster board. You did a project for a teacher last minute. You throw some glitter on it, and you hope the teacher says, "Ooh, this is pretty." You got an A. It's very hollow in its meaning and its content. So with the campaign, we see a lot of just trying to influence your opinion, and it also includes the media, because we know the media is biased. So if you're watching Fox News, they love the Republicans. They demonize the Democrats. If you're watching CNN, they love Democrats and they're demonizing the Republicans. If you're watching MSNBC, they try to be neutral. They pretend to be neutral, but they're more on the liberal side. Newspapers, the same way. Blogs, grassroots movements. There's just so much bias out there that it's very difficult for the voter to know what to do on election day, which is the important moment for an election, specifically a presidential election. Because on election day in November 2016 specifically, we're going to go vote. And how do we vote? Well, you go to your polling place, depending on where you live in your county. If you're a registered voter, of course, you have to be 18, U.S. citizen, and actually register to vote, get your voter registration card. You go to your polling place. And when you go to your polling place, you will probably get a paper ballot. It's going to have a whole bunch of names on there and offices, and it's going to have a D and an R beside that person's name, Democrat, Republican. You're going to make your mark, scan your ballot, get your sticker, I voted, walk out the door. It could be electronic. We are now seeing the use of touchscreens. You see the candidate's name, you touch it, go to the next screen. Eventually you may see it in the form of an email. Of course, that's way into the future. So once you go and vote, voting for the president, they then count the electoral votes of that state. So if the Republican candidate wins North Carolina in 2016, we're going to notice that they really don't win the presidency yet, because then they have to count all the electoral votes of all the 50 states and Washington, D.C. There are 538 electoral votes. The magic number, one more than half, 270. So the 15 votes from North Carolina would go to the Republican candidate, but then that Republican would need a whole bunch more votes to be able to reach the 270 threshold. So, where does the electoral votes come from? It comes from congressional representation. We have 2 U.S. senators serving in the Senate and 13 congressional members in the House, which means we have 15 electoral votes. How do we get the 13? From the census. Every 10 years, we check the state's population compared to the other states. If our population increases drastically, another state's population may decrease, hold the same. We may get additional congressional representation. It's based on the state's population. So, once the electoral votes are counted, at that point, we then have, of course, the circumstance of, putting that person in office, and we know officially who's won the presidency, and they're going to serve 4 years, and then they'll run for re-election after that point. So when you're looking at elections, a large part of this is what we're looking at is, majority rule. In this country, majority rules, so that if you get one more than half, you win the office. In other countries where they don't have a two-party system like we have in this country, they have to rely on what is called a plurality. And a plurality simply says who got the most votes. So if no one group, no one party in a foreign country has the most votes or has a majority, they have to form coalitions. Coalitions can dissolve very quickly when different groups have different opinions. In this country, we really don't have that problem because we have a two-party system. It sort of prevents that from happening because we only vote Democrat or we only vote Republican. Now, you can vote for the third party for an office, but the likelihood of that third party candidate winning is very minimal. The most powerful third party in this country is the Libertarian Party, and they still are nowhere near as powerful as the two major parties. So, why should we vote? If it's a majority rule and we know that one side or the other is going to win, my one vote's not going to matter. Well, we should vote because it's your voice. It's your way to register your opinion with the government, to show them how you feel, where you stand. Those that don't vote because they don't see a benefit. They don't feel there's an incentive, or they're simply just apathetic. They don't care. They feel disenfranchised. They feel neglected. They feel ignored. Unfortunately, with the apathetic attitude, it has been an attitude that has unfortunately grown in this country. We see that voter turnout is low in this country compared to other countries in the world that have democratic elections. The only time we have a high voter turnout is when we have a presidential election year, and even then our voter numbers are not as strong as other countries. A big part of that is that in essence we're still a young country. We are not a country that's been around for a long time compared to other parts of the world, even parts of Europe. You could use specifically where their countries have been well established and they've had a longer history than we had in this country. We're still a relatively new and young country. But the apathetic attitude is unfortunately growing. So how do we combat this? Well, good question. If you can come up with the answer, let us know, because we've yet to be able to solve that problem. But you're the next generation of voters. Hopefully you can solve that problem. Hopefully you will go out and vote. Hopefully you will not fall victim to apathy. So, Unit 3, remember you can look at the PCS curriculum guide on the Pitt County Schools website. Go to staff, click on PCS curriculum guide. Look at civics. You can look at the marking periods to see what you should know for each marking period. Or you can look at the year at a glance. Year at a glance gives you a unit by unit breakdown. Political parties, politics is Unit 3. So reviewing Unit 3. Two-party system. Understand the process of how we elect the president. Know the ways in which we vote. We can do a paper ballot, computerized ballot. Some places may still utilize a mechanical way of voting, lever machine. Also the importance, the influence of public opinion. That's our opinion about politics or issues. Interest groups who try to influence our opinion, also influence the opinions of elected leaders or those running for office. The use of propaganda by interest groups. The use of propaganda by, well, political parties, campaigns, and just generally understanding how this political process works. So another thing that you would want to ask yourself is, what party do I belong to? Am I liberal? Am I conservative? Am I moderate? Am I a Democrat? Am I a Republican? Or do I fall more under a third party opinion? The only way you're going to be able to answer that question is to do your research. Be informed. Look at their platform, their agenda, what they stand for. Compare your opinion to their opinion. And then see which group do you fit in best with. But ultimately, remember that even if you are a registered Democrat, you're a registered Republican, on election day, no one's going to know. Because when you actually vote for that candidate, it's a private moment. And it's just you and your opinion and your mark that you're going to make, your decision that you're going to make. So sometimes being a free agent can be a nice thing. But we know that influences, the media, interest group, family, friends, can sometimes put you in a position where you may decide to vote the way others vote, and that's fine too. The overwhelming effect is you're voting. Even if you're voting for the fact that the person's name looked cool, which I really don't want you to do, but inevitably you could do that. Or you do eeny, meeny, miny, mo. The fact that you're showing up to vote, voicing your opinion, showing your interest in government, and being a part of the process is very important. That's the notion of a republic. That's the notion of a representative democracy. Voice your concerns. Voice your opinion. Vote. Popular sovereignty. You're the power. The power lies within the people. So, until Unit 4, which is starting the branches of government, Unit 4 is legislative, Unit 5 is executive, and Unit 6 will be judicial. Until that time, hopefully you get something out of this video, and hopefully this video actually made it to the internet so that you can see it, and I didn't have to do a third, fourth, fifth, or sixth take on this. But hopefully you'll get something out of this process, and hopefully this will be a positive review for you in preparation for your final exam. So until then, see you later for Unit 4.